in that she was this very beautiful and very sort of Arctic, sort of aloof kind of presence.
Yeah.
And largely because she felt that way a lot around people. She was not
right.
But she had a son, and Ari was really young, maybe 2.5 or something. She had a son with Alain Delon, and not a relationship with him, and she was a single mother. She was working at night, She had a babysitter, and I don't know. She was, but she was wonderfully. She was fun, She was that sort of. If you see her in La Dolce Vita, it's that fun kind of. It's like a very girlish, beautiful, young girlish kind of quality that she had.
Yeah,
and she was smart. She was really smart, and she had very accelerated tastes in music. Like she hung around with Ornette Coleman. She was like she thought the Byrds were great, by the way, and everybody in New York were sort of against. They sort of had an attitude about California.
The anti-Byrds.
They weren't anti, but I just think they just assumed they knew that they just sort of. I think they were dismissive of most things California, but no, people in California didn't care. I mean, actually, but I mean, she liked the Byrds because of Roger McGuinn's solo in 8 Miles High. She just thought it was like really avant-garde and really.
Oh wow!
And of course, it was influenced by John Coltrane, and the Byrds were very progressive. So, and she dug that. She was just sort of, she wanted to do, and for that reason, she didn't really like Chelsea Girls, because when they made that record, everybody recorded the songs that they had written with her. Like Lou Reed played on the songs that he had written. I played on the songs that I wrote. I think I also accompanied her on a couple of things. Like there was a Tim Hardin song. What she was doing was very much like what Judy Collins was doing in that same period, which is to say that she was finding great songs by great writers and then curating them into this great, collection of songs. And it was a lot like, also Linda Ronstadt did that later, and Bonnie Raitt. But Judy Collins was sort of the master of that, and she had put all those songs together of Leonard Cohen and Joni Mitchell and Jacques Brel, or a deep cut from Donovan or something. So Nico's, there was a song that no one had ever heard that Bob Dylan wrote called "I'll Keep It With Mine." There was a Tim Hardin song called "Eulogy for Lenny Bruce." And
what was that guy like? Did you know Hardin?
I met him a couple times.
Yeah, man.
Well,
heavy.
I met him. I didn't. The second time I met him, I didn't particularly. He was being an asshole, but
yeah.
And I didn't understand why he would be. I had actually met him before that, and this is unbelievable. But like my sister brought him to our house in Orange County. She had met him at a club. And kind of came to our house to wake up my little brother to get a condom from him. This is at 2 a.m. or something. The stores are closed, and my sister comes.
At your house?
At my house.
Yeah.
And Tim, and they were in the company of Monty Dunn, who was I don't know if you know who Monty Dunn was, but a legendary guitar player from the East Coast. These guys are both East Coast people, and they're playing the Golden Bear, which is like, 30 miles away. It's at the beach, right? So they go inland to find a condom. And
so your sister, so he could sleep with your sister.
Yeah. And so there's a piano in the living room, and he sits down and starts playing the piano. And once again, it's like 2 a.m. And my father comes out and just stands there listening to him play. And he's singing, it's Tim Hardin singing, "You kiss me and call me Johnny when you know my name is Tim." And he's really good. And like my father just sees the whole situation. My father and his abiding jazz era wisdom just sort of stands there in the doorway listening, sees as my sister bolts back out the door with her 2 East Coast friends and her girlfriend, and everybody goes back to sleep.
That was the first time you met Tim Hardin.
Yeah, but I didn't meet him. I was just like in my pajamas at the end of the hall and watching. And but later this record of his comes out, with "You Look to Me Like Misty Roses" and "Reason to Believe" was the great song that everybody went nuts for.
Right,
And also
right.
The way,
Reason to Believe.
yeah. And when I noticed that, like a couple years later, was that people like that. I mean, he was such a stylist, and he sang the way he sang. I mean, there was just him, channeling all this great blues music that he'd sung, and he was undeniably great. But like his singing style would suddenly emerge on a Beatles song for one song. I'm trying to think of the song now, and you think, oh, there's some okay. So the Beatles must have heard Tim Hardin because they are singing like Tim Hardin for a song.
Well, he did if I Were a Carpenter too, right?
Right. Yeah, I just heard that the other day on the radio.
Those two, like I like Johnny Cash's and June's version of that.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But but you are a singular singer as well, and like when, so that New York period was just a kind of a part of the evolution, right? So you're already writing songs, and these days, I mean, a lot of people covered These Days, I think, didn't they?
Yeah.
Hasn't?
No, she was the first to record it, and she wasn't well known. She was not nearly as well known, and at that time as she became later, because that record sort of endured. The reason she didn't like Chelsea Girls was because after everybody recorded these songs, I mean, with her, and it really happened in 1 or 2 days. I don't know. I mean, the day I was recording, Lou Reed was there doing his stuff too. And what they did then is they called in a string arranger and put strings on everything.
Yeah,
and they're great strings. I mean, they're really the guy. I used to know his name. Every couple of years, I look his name up because I want to try to remember. But he was not. I mean, he had done some other things, but this. It kind of gave a longevity to it. That and the fact that she had an indelible. There was a quality in her singing, the lowness of her voice, the deepness of her voice, and her German accent that gave it a very noir kind of, quality that I think really affects people to this day, just on hearing it, without knowing her story or anything about her. But her story, of course, is really interesting too. But without knowing any of that, it's just it really appeals to people.
I always felt like she had there's something about her phrasing that reminds me of Astrid Gilberto. Like the jazz singer, the Brazilian jazz singer. I know it's German, but there's a slight dissonance to it, and her phrasing is very interesting. It's kind of unique.
Yeah. Well,
but it also feels detached because it's German, but it's very romantic somehow. I'm not sure how it's unique.
Yeah, yeah. Well, she was from Köln, and they don't really speak. They have their own dialect of German.
So what was it like meeting Lou Reed at that moment? I mean, that was a scene then. Did you go to the factory? I want to know if Jackson Browne hung out over at the factory.
No, I didn't go to the factory. And Lou, I met Lou at that session. And as a matter of fact, that night we went to go see the Murray the K show at the RKO. And it was, I mean, and every now and then I also have to look up this just to make sure I'm not making this up or I'm remembering it in some idealistic way, but it was Wilson Pickett, Cream, The Who, Blues Project,
wow,
Jim and Gene. It was this wild bill where it was just incredible, kind of everybody possible on this bill. And
you went with Lou,
and Lou and I
and Nico.
No, she didn't go. He just said he had tickets to this thing. And did I want to go? And we went. It was great. He had also been at the first Be-In. We called them. I guess in L.A. we called them Love-Ins, but it was the first, gathering of the tribes, as it were, and it was in Central Park. And he had been there like a couple days before. It was. You're trying to picture Lou Reed at a Love-In, but really,
can't do it.
He said he said it was incredible. He said it was, I think it had never happened before. This is kind of thing that had begun happening. And a few months later, in Monterey, they had the Monterey Pop Festival, and there were these sort of gatherings that were, in a way, a show of force, a show of strength, in the counterculture that was really, really notable.
Yeah, and it was defining it at the time.
Yeah.
It's interesting that you say about the Byrds and just about L.A. and New York that there were definitely two different approaches to psychedelic, that were happening, you know?
Yeah.
So when did you come back to L.A. to sort of like become part of this crew out here?
Well, I had friends that that were signed to a record deal. You know, I always just was like I'd gone east to see what was there, and I always planned to come back. So I guess I was in New York for about 3 months, maybe. Not very long. You know, I often think about what would have happened had I stayed and tried.
Well, that's what I mean. Yeah, man, it would have been a whole different. What do you think would have happened?
Well, I think similar to what did happen, but with a whole different set of coordinates. You know, like in L.A.
Because you already had the songs, you were going.
You know, I thought so, but it was a long time before anything happened.
Yeah.
When I say I thought so, I mean I did expect something to happen. That's why I didn't go to Europe with my friends. I thought, well, I would have done that. That's the other thing I think about. What had I gone to Europe when I was 18? Because that's so interesting and that's so full of information. They got as far as Afghanistan.
Wow.
And one of them was eventually got to India, and word got back that he had died in India, you know, and that was one. And by that time, I was living in Echo Park, and I wrote a song for him called "Song for Adam." So,
how'd he die?
I think he jumped from the top of a building.
Oh, in India.
Mm-hmm. And I think he was. I don't know what was going on with him, but he was always kind of a little bit barricaded away in his world. He was a little alone, you know, a bit alone in his world. But I tell you, what I think would have happened is I probably would have had a band sooner had been in New York, maybe.
Right.
I think so, because what happened in L.A. was that, and in Orange County. I mean, I was right around that time when I came back. My mother had moved to Silver Lake, and so I didn't have to make that. I mean, I could live at home, which I did. I came back and lived at home, and my friends lived in Hollywood, so I had a car I could borrow, and I could get around pretty well. Out in Orange County, it was also borrow your mom's car and drive to Hollywood, but it was always, you know, drive back too. So all the stuff that happened. So she
moved to Silver Lake?
Yeah, she lived in Silver Lake. And
your parents split up?
Yeah, my parents had split up out in Orange County.
Oh.
Yeah.
So then, okay, so you got a car, you're in Silver Lake, you're what, 19, 20 years old, you got a packet full of songs. It's 69, 70?
You know, trying to remember this, I just had a sort of a jog in my memory. I'm thinking of that image of my dad standing in the house, and it's like...
With Tim Harden?
Yeah, it's the wrong house. I'm thinking, what the hell is he doing there at 2 a.m? Why am I... So my memory's it's not perfect, but anyway, yeah. So what you're saying, I was like, I got a bunch of songs. Yeah, I always thought that I was about to make a record, and I took part in a record. I was on Elektra, you know. I mean, I wasn't signed to Elektra until this project, but it was a project that a bunch of us decided we would write. Like Figure 1968, right? The band had released. The band, by the way, I'm rocking my band shirt.
Oh, great! What's the music from Big Pink?
Yeah, that's up. That T-shirt is up on Cripple Creek. But yeah, right around the time Big Pink is released, we think we need to record in the woods. We need a house. You know, we need to be in a house.
Yeah.
And when we convinced Elektra Records to do this, you know, to let us, and we went all over the place looking for a likely place to become a sort of recording band in the woods.
Who's we?
A producer for Elektra, a guy named Fraser Mohawk, who was a really good producer. He'd produced the early, the first Kaleidoscope records, and actually he produced Nico's second album called Marble Index.
Is that how you met Lindley, through him?
No. I was just I just loved the Kaleidoscope, but I didn't meet any Kaleidoscope through him. He just... But
you worked with David Lindley, didn't you?
By that, I met him eventually I met him through another colorful character, a guy named Chesley Milliken, who was also dating my sister.
Yeah.
So, but you know, Lindley was great because when I met him, he's so cool.